What's good? What's good, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Urban Platform Speaks. Make sure to like and subscribe to the channel as you tune in and you check out the content. And with that being said, man, I'm reacting to a reaction video, right? I watched what's the guy named Dreamers Pro, and he made a video recently where he spoke about some comments that Phil Jackson had made about LeBron James some years ago, right? And which basically, like what Dreamers Pro said about Phil Jackson, I mostly agree with. But I just want to not only add on to that, agree with it, but just add on to what Dreamers Pro said because the warning signs of what LeBron James really was, it was out there years ago. And I remember when LeBron James was with the Miami, he was with the Miami Heat, and you know, it had got out that LeBron James really didn't agree with like how he was being coached down there, and so he kind of wanted to run what's the guy Eric Spoelstra out of town, and Pat Riley didn't go for that. Pat Riley, made it clear that Eric Spoelstra was there. He's a coach. He was going to stay there, and you need to listen to him, right? My and so Pat Riley ain't go for that. And then what happened was Pat Riley was just letting it be known that like he ran that organization, not LeBron James. And so LeBron James eventually left and went back to Cleveland. And everybody was, people kind of overlooked that, like a lot of superstar basketball players or athletes anyway can be divas at time. And so people don't pay that any attention. And then a little while after that, what's the guy? Phil Jackson had made some comments about LeBron James, and called LeBron James his crowd, his crew, the guys that he hang with. He called them a posse, right? And so as soon as he used that word, people kind of, people kind of took offense to it, but they didn't really notice or pay attention to the red flags that LeBron James was presenting at that time. And so now years later when we come to a point where LeBron James, they saw firsthand that LeBron James was a diva and he was all about LeBron James. Everybody else, like the public, was just like, he's just another athlete, just doing what athletes do. But LeBron James is just taking it to another level because he is really the kind of person who really all he care about is what basketball can do for him. And so now looking back, when you think about like how Phil Jackson really didn't really like some of the things that LeBron did, and then Pat Riley, and you have two old school guys who were, champions and know how to win and know how to coach and run winning organizations. And when you had those guys, it's something that people, I think people should have really paid more attention to. So, with that being said, I'm gonna play a little bit of audio from Dreamers Pro just to give some background and some perspective on what happened with the LeBron James Phil Jackson situation years ago.
Before we get into it, please make sure you like the video and subscribe to the channel. So, if you guys remember, some of you may remember, a number of years ago, Phil Jackson, I believe, was the team president of the New York Knicks, right? And they gave him an exorbitant contract for that role. I believe they gave him a $60 million contract at the time. And his tenure with the New York Knicks did not go well at all, right? They didn't go well at all. But beyond the fact that it didn't pan out from a front office standpoint, Phil Jackson made some headlines a number of years ago where he referred to LeBron James's crew as a posse, right? And it turned into this entire thing about race and is that a racial slur? Is he trying to be racist and all of that? And at the time, the general sentiment was that it's like a kind of like a it had like a racial undercurrent to it. That's what people thought. And at that time, I wasn't covering basketball, so I didn't have any say on it. But I remember while that was going on, right? While that went down. But over the last few games now, excuse me, weeks, as I've been witnessing what's been going on with the Lakers, especially since Rich Paul decided to become a podcaster and started doing his podcast, and some of the chaos, that he's caused as the agent of chaos, and saying things about players should be traded, and the Lakers front office being frustrated with Bruce Paul, I then began to realize, whoa, wait a minute, maybe Phil Jackson was referring to something else, right? Maybe it wasn't a racial thing. Maybe it was just like he's referring to this dude and his crew and how they move, right? So I had to go back and look at that article and revisit it and say, no, 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 no. Maybe it meant something else. Maybe there wasn't a racial component to it, and maybe we needed to just kind of look at it from through a different lens. Now that we have more information and we're seeing how these guys used to operate behind the scenes, and we're seeing it open how it happens in public. So we got an old article here from Bleach Report that I want to read. But before we even get into it, today's video is brought to you by a sponsor.
Yeah, see, so that's the whole thing, like kind of like what Phil Jackson was trying to say about LeBron James kind of got lost in the mix because people was like, well, you calling his crew a posse, and that's got some racial connotations to it, right? Um, and I do remember at the time I didn't really pay any, like some people took offense to he calling, he's saying that was a posse. But posse, a posse is like it's a term that they used back in the Western days, right? And it had no, like historically, the word posse had no, it had no connection to black people. It was like a bunch of cowboys who got together and, you know, uh, and was like on a pursuit of maybe like a outlaw or something. And so you get a posse together and go hunt down an outlaw. So it had really no connection to African Americans or anything like that. But people did take offense to it, right? So that's kind of where, and then so that is why what Phil Jackson was really trying to say about LeBron James really got lost in the mix. But let me see if I can speed this up.
Prize Picks. Say if you love Prize Picks' new feature, play $5. His decision to of ESPN. In November, he criticized James and used the word, "You can't hold up the whole team because you and your mom and your posse want to spend an extra night in Cleveland. I do know LeBron likes special treatment." The Cavaliers were in New York for a game against the Knicks on December 7th, and James said he was not interested in discussing Jackson's use of the word with the former coach, while he and his teammates were there, per Dave McMenamin of ESPN. James also pointed to the racial undertones of the word, per Dave McMenamin, didn't affect me, just how much further we still have to go and how far we still have to go as an African American, even in the light of today. James previously said of Jackson, I believe the only reason he used that word is because it's young African Americans trying to make a difference, per Jordan Hack of Sporting News. Dave McMenamin noted that that James lost respect because of that comment.
Yeah, see, it's sometimes people, like sometimes people do that. It's easy to, they play the race card sometimes. So I'm not gonna get into that part of it. But the thing is, like, and what Phil Jackson was trying to say is that, like LeBron James held up the whole team just so it could benefit him. And I do remember one time, like, and see, you dealing with coaches who come from way back and used to things operating in a certain way. I remember hearing a story about Pat Riley. He had a rule that no family members could ride on the team bus when he was with the Lakers. He was a head coach, and he had Magic Johnson, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, James Worthy, Byron Scott. I mean, he had a lot of bad dudes, right? But he still had his rule, like no family members, no outsiders could ride on a team bus because that was for I mean, it was just team only. And so Kareem Abdul-Jabbar came to him one day and asked him, he said, "I know you got a rule and everything." He said, "Man, but can my father ride on a team bus with us?" And I was like, "Damn, man, if Kareem, like was a legend, and if he felt it necessary to go to Pat Riley and ask for some leniency or ask for a special, for some special consideration, then if Kareem could do that, then Kareem knew that it was important for everybody to be on the same page, but he still had to get permission. And why should LeBron James have been any different? And that's why Pat Riley saw things the way he saw things. Like Kareem asked for permission, which he gave Kareem permission. He let Kareem father ride on the bus with them. That's probably not something that he probably would have did for for some like the 12th man on the bench. But you talking about, a guy who is a legend coming to his coach respectfully and just asking him, if he can make a special exception for him. But LeBron James wasn't like that. And I think that's part of what goes into the downfall of LeBron James, right? Because he has to understand that there is a hierarchy. You got players, coach, then you got management, then you have ownership, right? And everybody had their job to do. And LeBron James just was not, he just, like, everybody else was coachable. Magic was coachable. Bird was coachable. Isaiah. All those guys, they just was coachable, and they allowed their, not that they agreed every time with their coaches or anything, but they allowed the coaches to do their job. Whereas though this guy right here, man, when you think about all the coaches that LeBron James has had throughout his NBA career, then you like, oh wow, Mike Brown, hey, what's the guy? Vlad. Or his name was something Vlad. He was in Cleveland, I think, when they first got there. Teron Lue. Who else he had? When they first got to LA, who did he have? What's that guy name? He had two coaches. He on his third coach at LA. He had a coach when they first got there, and they won in that. I think when they first got there. Then he had what's the guy name? Darvin Ham. Now he has JJ Redick. So this guy's had like about 8 coaches, right? So, and the point is I think if you allow somebody to work with you and put the talent around you that's needed in order for you to have the kind of career that he could have. LeBron James could have really probably had a better. He would have had a lot better career had he stayed in Miami, and he was the kind of player that was coachable. All great players, are coachable. And so this guy was just never coachable. And I think guys like Pat Riley and Phil Jackson just realized that, and that's what they was trying to tell people, that this guy is not, he don't care. He just think he can do it all by himself. And so that's what I just wanted to add, that, like I said, all the greats were coachable. And if anybody shouldn't have been coachable, like I said, it could have been any of those guys, Magic, Bird, Mike, but they didn't do that. Even Isaiah, so that's my take on it. Make sure to like, subscribe to the channel. And with that being said, don't forget to leave a comment. Check you out next video. Peace.